Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here, the man who talks to machines, the machine whisperer, the man of gnosis. Well, let's pick it up here in part two with this Jacques Vallee, etc. Now, he's got about 6 or 7 books of babbling nonsense that he has out there, and I am going to eventually read these because that's what a good researcher does, so I can get a better. But I've watched many interviews with him. I think I read one of his books years ago. I'm not impressed by him. I've been following him. Again, he's a pseudo-intellectual that they've decided they could easily buy off, is my personal opinion. And of course, him and John Alexander, the CIA, and all the other people, he will give the company line out. Again, he has nothing to show for anything. It's very important. And let's go through all the UFO contactees in particular. Those who research UFOs have absolutely nothing to show for it. A few have photographs of ships in the air. I just went over that. Boring. Proves nothing. You can't prove anything from a picture of a ship in the air. The fact that there are different shapes and other things called saucers and so forth. Well, if you listen to Courtney Brown, the new UFOs out there are drones. They have little helicopter things on each side of them, 4 of them. And these are the new ships that the aliens use. So it's hilarious how people grasp at it. He's got absolutely nothing to show for anything. And again, you can't find a single UFO contactee that has one credible information of something practical. Here's a technique to do something. Here's an herb to use for your. Not a single one of them has any practicality, and none of it's been proved. Billy Meyer, who's been doing this for 60 years now, has absolutely nothing. All he does is talk about philosophy and make predictions. Apparently, making predictions is something that these people do, claiming they're getting this information from advanced ETs. Of course, we have the Bledsoes doing the same thing now. He wants to make predictions. Well, that's really good. That's what the extraterrestrials are done. They made you into a predictor. So you get this kind of nonsense that doesn't work. I mean, so they have absolutely nothing to show. And, I don't necessarily, it would be nice to get a piece of metal or maybe a little trinket from the ETs that would prove that this is weird stuff. We can't figure it out. Certainly would be nice to have that. And why can't they present that? Well, again, this means you have no credibility. So the whole idea is that, and none of them don't. Billy Meyer has absolutely nothing. One of his little chopies that follow him came out with the fact that you should take brown seaweed tablets because this is so good for you. Well, I'm not sure that's good either, but certainly that is not anything that is in any way advanced or earth-shattering that could help people. How about ways to generate energy? How about ways to grow crops? Anything that'll help people do. None of that has been made. So I don't believe if they have any contact, and of course, it seems like the ETs are a bunch of dummies because they contact the worst people on the planet that have no credibility and can do nothing. But that may not be the entire case either. But the bottom line is the people who go public are dumb people that really don't have anything to lose. If you're the head of GM and you say that aliens contacted you, well, you're going to be no longer the head of GM. You're going to be on the head of the soup kitchen line because they're going to disgrace you. So they have to bring people to the forefront that don't have anything to use. The Bledsoes. People like that. He has nothing. This guy doesn't do anything. He's a hillbilly. The whole idea is it's a typical people like that. The PK man, all these people, that's the people who can do it. So there's a self-fulfilling prophecy there of problems. Because as I said, if you're an attorney, you're something else, a doctor, and you come forward and you state these things, you will be disbarred, you'll be thrown out, you'll ruin your life. And is it worth it for what? After all, the extraterrestrials can say, I can't do nothing, Mr. Sharney. We don't do nothing. We don't help anybody. And like Courtney Brown, he said he needs another 30 years or so, and he's already 70 or whatever, to completed his work, and he asked the extraterrestrials to help him so he could live longer. Sorry, mister, can't do that. So what he's doing is the lowest level mentality thing you can do, which of course is you starve yourself and put yourself into a state of survival where your body tends to live longer because it's in a survival state. So you eat hardly anything. He's skin and bones. He looks like he just got out of Auschwitz, and that's his reality. And then, of course, because he looks so terrible, he went ahead and he stated this on his shows. I'm not making up anything here. It's not something that I know and nobody else does. It's right on his. All the information I give you, I would say that 98% of it is all stated by people themselves or by third parties to verify what I'm stating. I only give conjecture or my opinion from my vast knowledge. It's about 2% of everything to kind of put the pieces together. But that's, of course, why you get information from an ascended being. So that's very, very important. So the reality is that's what they told him. They're not going to help him. So he's had to do it on himself. He even goes down to the vitamins he takes, the supplements, which is pretty poor. Quite frankly, he's not really taking what he needs. He's not very versed in understanding nutrition and what his body needs. And what he's taking is pretty bad. And he's also taking them in bad forms. We could just go on and on of how improper what he's doing there. But the extraterrestrials gave him no help whatsoever. And because he looks like he's half dead, he went and got fat injections from his body so that his face wouldn't look like he's death warmed over. He stated all this. And I'm not sure there's anything wrong with that, but that's not necessarily a proven method. They did this with rats in particular by starving them, and they lived longer because it puts you in a state of survival. So your body's just hyped up all the time doing what it takes to survive because you're dying. So this is the kind of nonsense that you run into. So Courtney Brown is telling everybody to go out there, wave signs, jump up and down, dance the jig. I don't know. Tell them you got ice cream. I have candy bar. Ooh, E.T., come get your candy bar. I have coupons for ice cream cones. So the whole idea is all that stuff there as we get into it. We have the reality to understand what's happening with this. So, I believe he's serious, but, we can't follow delusional, virtually people that have mental conditions to think this is happening. And let's say it is happening. If these extraterrestrials refuse to assist you on any level whatsoever, what good are they? I mean, this ranks right up there with religion. You're living in a fantasy world that never manifests anything. What is the value of it? Nothing. You sacrifice your entire life for some mythical being because they're going to somehow give you a reward. We need verifiable information. We need information that's going to help a dying, depraved, horribly evil society so we can make changes and survive with the help of these. But ETs have never helped, and I don't think they ever will. It's also against intergalactic law to intervene in other societies because it changes them radically, and there's no going back. So I'm not sure what that's all about in the bigger picture, but it certainly seems to be the fact that you can never get anybody to do anything or have any information. So we can just go through all of them. The PK Man, the Bledsoes, Billy Myers, they have zero. They have philosophical mumbo-jumbo that virtually is worthless. There's nothing there. None of it's even very profound. Take care of the earth. Don't kill each other. It's not good to pollute your planet. You got to live here. Yeah. And how are we going to do that when we have a whole bunch of people that want to blow it up, want to produce toxic chemicals? Well, you got to stand on the street corner with a banana and scream it. So this is the kind of nonsense that we run into, that we're have to understand what is going on in the bigger picture. So they get nothing and have nothing. It's so ridiculous. And we have this at one after another. And this Courtney Brown has been contacted by extraterrestrials, has an entire book, which I haven't quite read yet, but he talks about the whole structure of anything, who runs the universe, who these people are. And I don't care, even if they're real, they do nothing. And they don't help anybody, and they're doing nothing to help this planet, period. Certainly they haven't done that. Some people claim they brought us these ridiculous God forms that everybody else believes in. Well, if they had, they're pretty much of screw-ups if they've done that. And there's certainly nothing within any of these books or anything else that has any value, because generally, if you look at any type of religious person, now spiritual is different, but religious people are believing in a basically a dogma that doesn't work. And we've had already, if we want to go back to the oldest religions, just giving it a ballpark, 6,000 years of this, and what has happened? Nothing. And that's not very long in the history of this planet as well, so you have to wonder what's going on. But we know nothing. We have nothing. We're a very evil species, and nothing is being assisting us. And if the fact of connecting with extraterrestrials in a physical fashion and communicating with them, whether they're on your street corner or everything else, is not going to help you. There's nothing they're going to do. And Courtney Brown goes into all this stuff. They want contact. They want to help. Well, where are they, Courtney? What happened? The drones just confused everybody. So why would an extraterrestrial fly a drone? That's certainly not what we're considered a spaceship. And of course, it's the same thing like those silly little things that look like helicopters that are carved into Egyptian pyramid or buildings or wherever they are there. Why would a ancient Egyptian carve in a 20th century tool? Doesn't even make sense. Where would they get that information? Are they saying they saw helicopters come there, and where did they come from? So as we do all this stuff, it's just madness that proves nothing. The whole idea is that there's all sorts of maybe information that assisted certain societies, but what people don't understand is that mankind is very genius, and they've figured out how to build things like pyramids. And we have this with Lee, I think it's Scalarman, in the Coral Castle. Here's a guy by himself, an uneducated Eastern European guy that came over here and was able to move giant blocks just like the Egyptians did. And he stated he figured it out. So the whole idea is that he wasn't an extraterrestrial, so if he could do it, someone else could do it. But as usual, he kept the secret to himself. So we have those problems when we run into all of this, and we have to keep that in mind. So what we have is the same old, same old. We have the same stories over and over again, and it's just boring to anybody who is over the age of 30, who's heard these stories 100 times. If I hear another story on remote viewing from McGonigal or people that cite Joe McGonigal, who was failed in 2 major experiments, heavily documented, by the way, is that he failed, couldn't figure out where he was at when he went against a talented psychic trying to find a missing child. And this is documented. I used to have that link around. I don't know if I find it again. I will place it somewhere. But you could actually see the documentary. I think it was made by Reader's Digest, of all people. I believe it was made in the 80s or late 70s, whatever it was, in all this stuff on remote viewing. And he couldn't find his butt in the dark with a flashlight. And of course, Psychic got everything right. I also saw him on Nightline, where he failed again to prove his remote viewing. But what we hear from him, he exactly drew this submarine. Yeah, because this is what the CIA allows you to release. So all you hear is the same old story all the time. It's old, worthless junk. And I'm not sure how much we can verify any of that. That's probably all made up by the CIA to get this out there. Because the CIA doesn't want to give you any money. They want to put that in their pocket and use it for their corrupt purposes. They don't want to pay psychics and other people to do it. So they've started with this whole program, and everybody in the program, the Stargate program, has written books and is teaching courses. That's what they were told to do, and they're all very wealthy from it. Some extremely wealthy. And they claim they make it from the remote viewing. Well, none of this can really be verified. And the whole idea is that I'm sure that it works to a degree. The kind of levels they're talking about, I have great doubts with. And of course, I don't really have time to learn high-level remote viewing. I've done some of it on a lower level, but I have other things I'm into, and everything takes practice. I don't have hours and hours in the day to do every little metaphysical practice that's out there. But it's the same old, just like the Phenomon movie with Jacques Vallee is the same old, plain and simple. He's saying the same old things, but the point is people don't know the history. He says there is no extraterrestrials. And this was verified by his buddy, Colonel Alexander, who then wrote an entire book on that. And his comment was on a talk show, is that, well, I should know. Because I would know because I'm the dude. So the whole idea, yeah, he's the dude all the way around. So the whole idea is that's the reality of it, is the fact that since he is involved in all this paranormal and other types of stuff, that if this was a reality, that they would tell this colonel because he investigates everything. Well, I'm not sure that's the case. And I think when it comes to extraterrestrials and other things, there may be levels of people they don't bring in. Because generally you don't see any generals doing it. It's always under generals. Because I believe it's colonel, then it's general. And you never hear generals coming out because they're under all sorts of legalese stuff as well, or apparently the colonels are not, who you find all over YouTube babbling what is really some of the most garbage I've ever seen. You can certainly find out why America's had trouble winning wars when you listen to the colonels out there, the cowards, their inept military understanding, everything that goes with these bozos. So the whole idea is that I don't give him any credit. He's written all sorts of books proving phenomena, but that's his stick. And the point is that he claims that there are no extraterrestrials, period. And this is Colonel Alexander, John Alexander. And of course, he works with Jacques Vallee. And he wrote the introduction to Jacques Vallee's last book. So you can see how much in the embed is. And as I stated already, from what I understand, if the information I got was right, is that Jacques Vallee is pretty much 100% funded by governmental agencies, and particularly CIA, NSA type organizations. I'm not sure where the money comes from and what it's called exactly, but it's unimportant. I don't want to fill my mind to spend hours researching exact details. It's unimportant. What's important is the general understanding. Jacques Vallee doesn't believe in extraterrestrials, and this has been firmed that there is, reaffirmed by Colonel John Alexander, there ain't none. Why should we listen to him? But what they do to make money is they twist this, making it look like the fact that they do believe what the public wants to hear now, and they can make money off of it. So the other thing, of course, is the good old, been around forever, Stephen Geer. Now, Stephen Geer is another guy who's been out there with many military contacts and everything else, and this is what bothers me, same thing with Jacques Vallee, but they have absolutely nothing to show for it. And again, Jacques Vallee has nothing to show for it. And again, whether they have a few little pictures and even a few good pictures of flying objects is not good enough. UFO pictures are a dime a dozen. What are real, what are not? Are they military? Are they not? Most of these things, as I said, you pretty much 95% of everything we can find a human origin of it. There is probably 5% we're unsure of, and why they show themselves, we don't know either. But we get into Stephen Geer, who's been out there for, again, here's a guy that's been doing this for 40 years, maybe longer. He has a list of generals, scientists, and everything else as long as his arm of people he's worked for, and he has absolutely nothing to show for it. He's got some goofy-looking little picture that he claims is an extraterrestrial. No, I want pictures of a ship parked on the ground with an extraterrestrial standing next to it. And I want pictures that are 5 to 10 feet away. Anything else is just fraudulent nonsense. We have all the pictures from Billy Meyer, which are, many of them have been proven to be fakes. Some of them look really good, but looking really good, even if you're not using Photoshop, which wasn't around when he took his pictures, we have problems there as well. That's not good enough. They all claim that they're having contact, physical contact and everything else. And, of course, nobody in Billy Meyer's family except him has ever seen these extraterrestrials. Again, why? None of this makes sense. It doesn't make sense. It's the same thing with Stephen Geer. Where are some good photographs, even of ships, but really good ones, because this is what you do. You think he'd be walking around with a super lens to take clear pictures every second of the day. And you would have something to show for it. And you would have something a little more than pictures of ships. We need pictures of aliens, plain and simple. So I'm not going to settle for anything else. I'm sick and tired of everybody who wants this to happen, of course, allows for this kind of nonsense to go on. And this is all part of life. You know, people want something and they want to believe in it for whatever their personal reasons are and whatever they get out of it. So they accept garbage. They accept nonsense. They accept losers, failures, and inferior products because, oh, well, I want a product like that. So even if it's a bad product, I'm going to take it. Well, that's a pretty bad way of looking at things. So they have nothing. And even these prophecies and stuff that Bledsoe and Billy Myers does, yeah, we need more psychic prophets, have been pretty poor at the reality of these prophecies. Again, if you make enough prophecies, and I've known people who've done this, it's a game. A certain amount of those will come true, period. And unless we can get something ahead of time and that it happens exactly, not close, not maybe, it has to happen exactly. If you don't, then what's the matter? Your ETs are stupid. They couldn't get the day right. No, we don't understand what Tuesday and Wednesday is. So the whole life, well, what is all that? There are all sorts of problems here, and all of the people coming forward, and of course there are some organizations out there, the Blink 82 or whatever it is, has his own little profit organization, and it's filled with the same people of Uncrown. CIA agents, other people like that, and of course I guess there's a necessity to bring some of these people in, but but they're not allowed to get any information, take any information out, or to release it, plain and simple. That's why we hear about the Joe McConnells and his drawing the submarine that nobody knew about until he talked about it. So I don't know how they verified that later or not, but if you don't know about something and nobody's ever seen it before, you're going to have to wait until it's launched or whatever so that you can see it. But regardless of that, that's it. And they allow that story to go out because it's been going out. It's the same old stories over and over again. So we do have to understand this on the biggest level that goes with it. You're going to hear the same old garbage from the same old people. As again, Geer has produced nothing, yet he likes to throw around all these fancy people and say they're going to kill him and everything else. And ultimately, then they hide and don't release information because they're afraid to release it. I mean, it's an unending circle of nonsense. We have it, but we can't release it. Well, what good is it then? Shut up and go sit in the corner. If you're going to be a coward about it and you don't want to release it, but you want to talk about it all the time, well, you're not doing any service for anybody. If you think they're dimensional, you're not doing anybody. We're talking about physical extraterrestrials that get in crafts and come from another planet. Now, if they use wormholes or dimensions to get here and everything else, well, that's okay because we're still talking about physical entities. And, of course, we have to define things like that. But Stephen Geer has produced absolutely nothing. Neither has any of these other people, neither has Jacques Vallee, etc. And as I said, if they have a few pictures of little dots in the sky or even okay pictures of some sort of UFO, who cares? We need something much more passive. We're talking about people who have been doing this for 20 to 40 years. Stephen Geer has been doing this forever, apparently is well funded, works with all these scientists, generals, etc., and has absolutely nothing to show for it. Jacques Vallee is another one. And, these are all old codgers that should move on and let somebody else do it. And secondly, I'm sick and tired of seeing all these CIA contractors, NSA contractors, all these military people, etc., because they are under a supreme penalty that they can't say anything. And they could easily be grabbed by a military court and thrown in prison and even disappear. So most of them have lives and they have families and everything else, and they're not going to do it. They'll talk, but they're not going to give any details. They do exactly what they, to a certain level, which they can get away with. Again, this isn't good enough. If you're going to be like that, then don't get involved with it, period. And I don't trust any of them because they're all mouthpieces, and this is another way to satisfy people by giving them basically information that's worthless, but it feels good. It's warm and fuzzy. It's like eating candy. Oh, damn, that tastes good. Yeah, but the problem is there's no nutrition. It's empty. There's no nutrition in it at all. It's just a little mind screw for a few minutes. But the value of it is what? What is the value in candy? Nothing in terms of nutritional value. So we have to understand that, and this is where we're stuck. And we're stuck with this, as I said, Joe McGonigal is a joke in my book, which people give huge credit to. He's been filmed failing horribly on 2 occasions, and those were the only ones that filmed. I wonder what they're doing, period. And that goes for all remote viewing, because remote viewing is something that the government is trying to recruit talented people without training anybody. So we have that. So we have these 2 major things, and as I said, there's these 2. There's Phenomon, and then there is Unacknowledged by Stephen Geer. These are 2 docs that are on YouTube, and you can look at them if you want to waste your time doing that. And you want to look at stuff that they talk about Roswell from 48? And you want to see the case about the children being contacted. And again, the people producing this, I find it very interesting. But you know, the whole idea is the energy people that put together that are making a fortune apparently got money in this. And of course, she thinks she's connected with extraterrestrials, and the best they can give us is a multi-wave oscillator invented around the turn of the century by Blavatsky. Because that's all it is. And they use a lot of modern terms which are meaningless. They throw a little bit of sound and some color in there. And the bottom line is that technology is pretty lame and produces poor results, if we want to give them at best. So they're not doing anything. And the more little celebrities they get and everything else, I'm just looking into another thing with a psychic healer who talks to angels and gets information. And he's got the same cast of characters and some other movie stars, claiming that he is getting his healing information from angels. Of course, this is a legality thing. I don't think there's anything about this guy real, but the information he gives is pretty poor. But everybody, Sylvester Stallone, all the other cast of characters, and of course, we have all the usual people that seem to pop up in all these things. So we have to fully understand what's going on here, and what a waste all this is. It's a complete and total waste to see information about 50 and 60 years ago. Now, there's been numerous UFO encounters, UFO incidents, etc. And apparently nobody has any film, or at least nobody wants to show anything because of the dangers involved. But do we really need to talk about Roswell and what happened in, I believe, South Africa another 30, 40 years ago? I think half of the people that went to that school now are all dead by the facts. So we just, this is nonsense. These are not credible cases, other than the fact that we have witnesses, and that's not good enough. We have to have credible witnesses, which are not children. We have to have physical evidence of some sort. Did they leave a sand dune behind me? Did they drop a piece of paper? With that, and we need to have close-up photographs of beings and craft. Other than that, we're just spinning our wheels here with a lot of really mental masturbation that does absolutely nothing for anybody. And we just have this from one thing to the other. And if you look into all these UFO people, they have very little to no credibility, like Richard Dolan, who hangs around with Satanists who were actually at his wedding, and has no problem hanging out with chaos magicians and everything else, which seem to be his buddies, who he's good friends with. Well, why are you good friends with a Satanist, Richard Dolan? So the whole idea just never ends. When you look into it, the circle goes around constantly, and going around constantly is the fact that these people can't be trusted. They always end up with CIA, criminal, or satanic contacts. So what the hell is going on here? And of course, nobody sees this because they don't have the research background that I have, of 50 years of research in this field, and the author of many books, and I've done so much stuff in this entire field. And of course, you haven't heard of me because they don't want the voice of reason and the voice of facts out there. They want you to buy into this. Now, the bottom line is you have to show something or show off. Go on. So the whole idea is the rest of it doesn't have any value. We're living in a time where we need proof of things. If you've got something that works, well, let's have proof of it. People want thousands of dollars to try their medical pseudo cure there, yet they really don't have proof of any of this worthing other than a few stories from people. So if you got treatment centers around the world and you have thousands of people going every day, you're going to have a certain percentage of people that'll say they're cured. And we don't have before and after information. And this is going to happen anyway because of the fact of the placebo effect, where people are going to go there and believe they're healed, and they will be healed. This is a scientific fact, which is really the devil in the details problems with any research, because a certain percentage of things will happen just by that effect, which is really a problem. Placebo, it really is the monkey wrench in everything. And I'm not sure how we can get around that, but I'm not a believer in using placebos anyway in tests, but that's another issue. But the bottom line is that all of this stuff is the same thing. We need proof of it, and if these people are so well connected, they're so tough, they're so rich and everything else, they should be able to buck the system to a degree and come out with more information. And what some people do is they put up testimonials, and again, testimonials are interesting. And I hope this stuff does work for people. I hope people are curing themselves using the placebo effect, or I hope some of these machines have some validity to them. I've never been able to establish validity with anything. And the fact that you say you were sick and you were cured, and even if we can verify that, is meaningless in the bigger picture. Yes, it happened to you, but does the technology work for a good percentage of the people? And placebo can affect as much as 40% of people. So you've got to have a pretty high rate of success to get over the placebo effect. So this is all part and parcel of the very difficult situation here. And the fact is that no researcher, no UFO contactee, no alien contactee, no ET buddy pals have come up with anything. They have zero proof. And the people have been around literally for over 60 years, like Billy Meyer, have nothing to show for it. Supposedly little pieces of metal and this and that, but a lot of stuff that Billy Meyer gave were stuff that was proven to come from Earth. So they mix in other things. I don't quite understand all of this, but he'll run around with a ray gun and show you what the ray gun did, but he'll never show you the ray gun in action. So Billy Meyer's totally and completely untrustworthy, and this goes with everybody. There just isn't enough substantiated facts. And again, pictures are not good enough, particularly of the new phenomena, which I'm not sure how new it is, but the orb factor, big glowing balls of light, which I personally have seen probably 70, 80 times, particularly in an area that was known for this in Southern California. So certainly, but what is it? It's a ball of energy. And even if you take pictures of it, that's all you see is this big glowing ball. So that really doesn't prove its extraterrestrial origin. Most likely it isn't. These could be even caused by Earth factors, and that's why we have something that when you have a UFO, there are types of UFOs, and there's Earth-based UFOs, because when a certain tectonic plates push together, or there's certain rock formations, well, it's like getting a crystal. If there's a lot of rock formations or crystals in a place and the Earth is moving a little, you're going to produce lights coming up. Just to give a quick example there. So that doesn't mean anything. So seeing orbs means nothing. Secondly, these orbs all seem to be highly toxic and dangerous. And this is the other factor which these people are reporting. They claim they have business investors and everything else. But all these orbs and these egg-shaped ones, which is something new, by the way, egg-shaped UFOs, especially small, is not in the U.S., the UFO area of talk at all. I've never even heard of this until recently. Sounds to me like these are very man-made based items, and they're unmanned craft. You control them with your mind. Well, again, that all adds up to very human-based. And they're not small enough to carry a crew, or they're too small to carry crews, maybe one person in them. This is all just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. And they all seem to be very dangerous. Now, there's an awful lot of UFO cases where people have stated they have died from contact. They've got radiation poisoning from it. Now, you know, space is filled with radiation. Is that common? Because that's where they come from, and have these extraterrestrials figured out how to overcome that horrible toxicity that kills Earth beings? I don't know, but you would think they wouldn't be sitting in a giant in the middle of a a fusion generator, which is exactly what these ships are. And people go close to them and they get fried, and a lot of them die. And there are hundreds of cases of this, by the way. To me, that stinks of a human creation, because we're using the most primitive but the strongest energy we have, which is basically nuclear power. But that is very primitive. You would think that advanced people wouldn't be using such toxic stuff. And they must understand, if these are ET crafts, of how toxic this is to the people that they are visiting with. All of this doesn't make much sense at all, and they have no credibility to this. They have no answers for it. The orbs where things pop out of them, I have no idea. Again, I have real problems with this. Sounds to me like some government manipulation. We have no idea. And of course, the problem is that you've got the people that are generally contacted, the Bledsoes, the PK Man, the Billy Myers. Well, they're all just low-level bozos. They don't have any analytical, they haven't done any real research, they don't understand on a higher level what's going on, and while they may be okay people, and you probably wouldn't mind having a cocktail with them or going to dinner with them, I wouldn't necessarily take their opinions at a high level. A researcher can talk to these people and pull out from them what has value and disregard the stuff that they just don't quite understand. But this is a little bit of a really difficult and problematic situation we have, that we have absolutely no verification. And by the way, they're going to be making a PK documentary movie, and taking Jeffrey's No Proof Allowed Mishlove book, which was a pretty bad book when you look at it in retrospect, that says virtually nothing and there's no proof in it. I hope they extrapolate on his particular story with that, how he died, what went on, etc. Because here's another smart ET contact, and the ETs were so great that he talked to praying mantis people. He died of alcoholism, I'm assuming liver disease. So the whole idea is that certainly here's another case where they're not helping people. And what they're going to say about him will be quite interesting. But it's a lot of it with him, again, is very fascinating. It appeared that, he said it was going to rain and he would go places and it would rain. Apparently it could move storms. But, this is, as much as that sounds fantastic and amazing, shamans have been doing this for thousands of years. And they can demonstrate this pretty repetitively. You go to shamans, and that one of the major jobs of a shaman is to control the weather. You need that rain so you can grow that food. You need to control that weather because you're not living in a protective environment. So this is not overly shocking. He couldn't figure out how to make a dime from it, apparently, PK Man in particular. And we have all these other people like Dolan and his satanic connections and everything else that goes with it. So all of these things we have to look at in the bigger picture of what's going on and be very aware of this. But it's just old nonsense. It's repetitive nonsense. This was a waste of film. It's doing nothing to help anybody unless you're, I would say, under 30 and have never heard the stories before. Maybe under 20. So certainly we don't need to repeat Roswell, and we don't need to repeat what happened in South Africa with that school. I'm not sure. I'm not impressed by that. Is that impressive? Am I missing something? Well, I'm missing any kind of meat, detail, or quality information. That's what I'm missing. Coming from the same old losers that have been doing this for 40 years and never done anything. The Mishloves, the Jacques Vallees, the Stephen Greers. Well, I'm afraid you're failures, people. You've produced nothing. You're a bunch of failures, and people shouldn't give money to people that are failures. Plain and simple. Until next time.